welcome to Angus IT, the podcast all about anxiety, depression, and other cheerful topics. But now there's another podcast. And that podcast is called Sloshbucklers, and it's the uncanny podcast that reviews canned booze, and I am the host and producer of both. I have a second podcast, and it will be live on April 1st. That is a Thirsty Thursday, and it's also April Fool's, which cracks me the fuck up. But yeah, I have a second podcast. I'm doing 2 podcasts at once. What the fuck? I'm crazy. I thought it would be fun today to talk about how I came to work on a second podcast, tell you a little bit about the new podcast, the whole creative process, because it does involve like my mental health coming into play, the life sabbatical, like there's things have intersected that normally wouldn't have to make this possible. So this is going to be a wild episode, so feel free to bring your tea or your favorite canned booze, I suppose, and let us begin with the origin story of Sloshbucklers. So you know when you have like a really good idea, but you would never be able to follow through on it? You have a great project and you're like, oh, that'd be so cool. I really want someone to do that. I want someone to write that book. You don't really have the capacity to do it, but you wish it existed. I've had a few of those in my time. I think we all have, but Sloshbucklers was one of them. I wanted to do a podcast that at first just reviewed hard seltzer because you have a lot of people reviewing wines and beer, but I've never heard of someone being like a wine seltzer professional reviewer. Like I don't even think there's a word for it. Like you have sommelier for wine. I'm not sure what the term is for beer, but like these things have licenses and seltzer's new enough, or at least big enough now that people care about it. I'm just not sure if there is anything like that yet, or it's in the process, so I feel like it's a weird thing. And hard seltzer, there's so many of them now, it would just seem hilarious to me to go through and have someone rank them, because in a way they all taste the same, and yet they each have their own thing going. So in my mind, I thought, podcast, call it Helter Seltzer. And it was just a cool idea, but I didn't have the capacity to do that. I already had Angus IT, I had my day job, I had the other creative things I was trying to do, like write and job search there for a little bit, therapy, Taco Bell. Like I was a busy gal. And having a podcast is very time consuming. So having 2 would have been like just a lot of editing. And maybe I could have pulled it off, but I just didn't have the gung-ho, the vitality. One of those is okay. Anyway, I didn't have the gumption to do it, but I had told a handful of people, hey, wouldn't it be funny if there was a podcast that reviewed hard seltzer called Helter Seltzer? And so time goes by, a whole year, dare I say. And I'd had this floating around for like a year and a half, but I started like casually dropping it to people like, wouldn't that be funny? Like about a year ago. Enter life sabbatical. I don't have a job, so I have more time. I've been doing a lot with Angus IT. I launched a Patreon. I'm creating more content. I'm branching out into video. And I am trying to figure out what I want to do. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. We'll get into that later. But my friends and I, we were chatting and I brought up again like, see, this is why it'd be hilarious if there was a Helter Seltzer hard seltzer review podcast. And they were like, you could do it. And I was like, no, I never have the time. And they were like, well, you don't have a job anymore. So you kind of have the time now. And didn't you say this is what you kind of wanted to do? And I was like, how dare you? But very true, because a big thing for me since quitting my job is that I haven't mentally, I guess it hasn't computed that I do have the time now to do these things. I think I'm still detoxing in a way. I'm still trying to figure out like what a schedule is like and how do I like go out on my own career-wise and possibly do freelance or start my own consulting business. I don't know, one-on-one thing, whatever. And it's all very stressful and very terrifying to me. But in my head, I was just like, oh, I have to constantly focus on these other things because that's what I used to spend my days doing. I would be stressed about the next thing and like hovering on it and then kind of making tiny dents. But mostly my days were filled with I'm not doing enough or anything. And that like wasn't true. I was doing things. But you know, when you have heavy thoughts like that, they take up your time, which is why For example, when you get on a great medication or you feel like your mental health is really good, you suddenly have more time to do things because your energy isn't focused internally, just trying to get through each step. You now have free space in your mind to enjoy a moment, maybe throw a party, write a book, just these other things don't clutter your process. And so that kind of was a mentality I was still having, though, of the cluttered mind. But after I realized how dumb it was that I had quit my job kind of to like look into this stuff, and then I wasn't actually like doing it. I was like, I don't really have an excuse now, do I? So I just casually, the first thing I did is like, whenever you're like going to commit to something, just as a heads up, go get all the socials, just do it outright. Try to get the domain. I wasn't sure if I was like serious enough yet, but I looked into seltzer and the name had already been taken by a podcast that I think is dead. I don't want to like come after them like that. It's a great name. That's why, great minds think alike there. But seltzer as a name was just already taken. I notoriously suck at coming up with names for things. Anytime I write, I have no idea what to name a character. I am lucky that Fern came pre-named. Because if she hadn't, I Lord knows what my dog's name would be. I was really stressed about this next project because I was like, I don't know what the fuck I would even name this. And so I was going back and forth with my friends and I was like, I kind of have a trend of having stupid names for things. Like Angus IT is a stupid name. Like, I love it, but let's all be real. It's stupid. Like, you hear it and you're like, I don't know what it is. And then I'm like, oh, say it quickly. Anxiety, anxiety. And then people are like, oh my goodness, that was really clever. I feel stupid. I'm like, no, don't feel stupid. I'm the stupid one. It's not you, it's me. But I kind of enjoy that as like my brand. It's like, I just have really dumb names for things. And so I'm bouncing back and forth with my friends and I'm coming up with a giant list of names for a podcast. And as I'm going through, I'm thinking about it and like there's a finite amount of hard seltzers, at least for now. There will probably be more and more in different variations, but hard seltzer is like a season. And I was like, that would kind of be nice to have a show that's a season because Angus IT just goes. As my life goes, this podcast goes. And I enjoy the rhythm of it. I like it. I do take breaks when I need to, but I've got my rhythm down here. And my episodes are about 30 minutes normally. Sloshbucklers, even though I didn't know that's what it was going to be called, I wanted it to be a guest show. And I was going to have guests come on and we would drink together. And I hadn't even figured out the structure yet, but I knew it was going to be more involved because anytime you have a second person on a second mic, that editing just becomes way harder. It's stupid. I don't know why I've done this to myself. But, when I do a solo podcast, it's all on me. But I can also be like, oh, it's 11 p.m. and I haven't done this yet. I will now record right now. Like, I can do a lot of last minute shit with myself. You have to have your shit more together if there's another human being involved, though, especially if they're a guest and aren't even in the podcasting realm. Like, I just have to throw this all at them and also get them drunk. It's a vibe. But I am going back and forth with my friends. Like I said, I've got a list of different names or words associated with alcohol that I think could be fun. And as we're going through, I have the thought that like, oh, hard seltzer, that could be a season. What does that mean then? What would other seasons be? And then I thought, wouldn't it be hilarious then as a trash show to review what some would deem like the lowest of the low of alcohols, which is canned alcohol. Like you go to a fancy restaurant, they ain't pulling out canned shit. You got bottles, like it's nice. And I was like, canned alcohol, what a weird niche that, I'm sure someone else has done it out there, but I haven't heard of any like big podcasts doing it. So I kind of got excited by that. I was like, okay, this is weird. And so we're going through and like at one point there was something like Captain Koozie and I don't know. I liked the idea of having not like a nautical theme, but just something very fantasy element vibe just because I don't know. It just seemed fun and weird, and I enjoy dramatic names like that. I've been really into D&D podcasts lately, and I just love that element of storytelling. We're going through, and then my friend Max says the worst thing I've ever heard. Because I think we had entered like knights and like sword fights or something, and I kind of got the image of like, I don't know, like a fun battle, but not being like monster truck vibe. And so Max goes like swashbuckler. What about like sloshbuckler? A swashbuckler who like does, classic like sword fighting, Three Musketeers, that kind of shit. But add the word slosh, which I don't know if you're not from America, that is a term we use to get drunk. And so sloshbucklers, was the worst thing I had ever heard of, and thus it had to become my name. Like, I had no other choice. That's just how it works for me. So Sloshbucklers was the name. So now I had a name, and what I had to do next was come up with an episode structure. And so I made myself set one up, and I was looking at it and I was like, that kind of looks fun. Now, this all sounds like it's just a fun merry-go-round. It's a fun ride. Like, oh man, I had a creative idea and things are falling into place. And they were. But at the same time, my self-doubt levels were shooting through the roof because I was taking on another project and it felt wrong. Like, I felt like I wasn't focusing on the right thing. Like, in my mind, I was like, oh, I have to be searching for my next corporate job. I have to be doing this. And like I've been saying, I'm very aware of where I am. I am not, just like putting things off. I am aware of what needs to happen. But I took this time to build up my creative resume and to look into these things I've never gotten to do. This is, like I say, it's kind of my once in a lifetime opportunity to just kind of be like, pause, breathe, reset. What's next? So while I'm creating this, I'm actually incredibly stressed. And I think part of that is perfectionist tendencies I can't let go of. Part of it was guilt. Part of it, in my head, it was like, am I running away from dealing with my issues? Am I not sitting down and spending 3 hours a day trying to figure out my next career move? And maybe that is something I could have done, and, it probably would have done something. But this was around February. I was not in a good place, probably in February. Like, I've always been happy. How do I word it? I mentally, like, my job connection to my brain is still like, I'm trying to be like, if I get a job, it doesn't mean I'm going to be depressed. Like, those don't go hand in hand anymore, but I'm still used to that. I had that for 3 years. So you can imagine like trying to do that. And now, especially like with my bipolar, this is the first time I've been able to be on my meds that made me feel good. And now a big stressor in my life is removed. So in a way, this is like another trying to find a homeostasis, trying to level out again. So in February, I'd been unemployed for a month. And I don't know. I still have these thoughts to this day of just being really confused and caring about what other people think. And then, occasionally I'm like, did I just like screw myself over and am I going to have to work until I'm 101? But then I realized, like, based on our economy, I'm going to have to do that anyway. But you know what I mean? Like, I have the fears that you would assume I would have, along with the joy. I know it might look like it's all sunshine and rainbows over here, but I do have that stress. No worries. Elaine Best always has stress going on. So we hit beginning of March, and I have sat on this idea for a while, and I'm not doing it. I'm like touching up the structure, and I think the perfectionism went into overdrive because I already have a podcast. I have Angus IT. I've been doing this for over 2 years now. I kind of know what I'm doing, and I also know what doesn't work and what are kind of like not great like podcast practices. And so I'm starting a second podcast. Ergo, it should be flawless because people know I already podcast. And when they go to that one, they're going to be like, oh, Elaine should probably be automatically at like level 100. And what if they go there and it kind of sucks? And then they're like, wow, that was pathetic. And so when you have that mindset that everyone's judging you and it has to be perfection, it's pretty rough. Like, nothing new is great at first. Like, it could still be good, but like, when I first started this podcast, I got to live in the beauty of ignorance. Like, I still had an idea of like, oh, that sounds like shit or not shit. But like, I wasn't great at podcasting. I just kept doing it. And I've gotten a lot better as the years have gone by. So I guess I have that at least as a starting point. But anytime you have a creative thing and you're doing it for the first time, even if you have background in it, it's scary because you've never done it. You're going to come into your voice. You're going to figure out, oh, it makes sense to have this segment before this segment. Maybe this way of editing would work better. Just things like that, best practices. But you have to do it to know it. You have to start to be able to fix those things or work with them because you never know until you do it. You can hypothesize, you can research, you can make a perfect list, you can try to hit everything, and you just will not know until you're doing it. And so I hit that in March, and I'm like, this really sucks, but if I don't do this, if I don't say I'm going to do it, then I don't know. And then it will never happen. And it's one of those things where it's like, what drove me to keep going? I'm not sure. I just knew that this would be really fun. I love having a mental health podcast, but as you know, I enjoy a good chuckle, and I thought it'd be fun. Like, hey, this is something that I don't know how to word it. I hate to see, this is going to sound like I'm putting myself on a pedestal, and that's not what this is. And I don't like that, but in a way where it's like mental health doesn't have to define you. I love talking about mental health, and I don't think that being bipolar is something that, you know, is a bullet point on Elaine's resume. But I think in a way it'd be fun to be like, if someone came to Sloshbucklers, they're like, oh, this is fun. And then maybe later they casually learn, oh, she had bipolar. I didn't know about that. And just kind of normalizing like, yeah, you know, people can be out and about. You don't necessarily have to talk about, you know, what's going on with you, your mental health disorders. It doesn't automatically make you a spokesperson. I think sometimes people feel pressure to do that because, you know, there's Instagram posts sharing your pills and all this stuff. And I think it's great to have those conversations. But I also think if you're not comfortable sharing that, that's okay. Your life is your life and it's your privacy. And if that's like the best way for you and people in your life and your doctors or who have you like agree, like you have healthy habits, like this isn't harming you or other people, then I think that's fine. So I don't want that to sound like I'm ashamed of anxiety. I really love what I'm doing here. I just think it'd be fun to have a creative project that is fully me being comedic. There we go. That's what it is. I'm afraid to say that I'm a comedian. I'm afraid to admit that I'm funny. I'm afraid to honor these things, whereas those are probably like my biggest character traits and my biggest strengths is being funny. I enjoy it. It's great. We have a laugh. I cry myself to sleep. Repeat. It's fun. Having anxiety, like talking about mental health, it's a mental health podcast, comedy second. Who knows? I mean, it kind of tosses up, but you know what I mean? Like I didn't have to claim that I was funny because it's a mental health podcast first. So I can kind of hide behind that. Sloshbucklers is not going to be a like drinking review podcast first. It is, but that's not a specific category on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. There are like food and beverage ones, I think, which I've put down, but it's comedy. It is a comedic podcast, and I am attaching my name to that, and I am saying that this is a comedy podcast. And that's also gross and terrifying for me because I don't have anything to hide behind now. So it's something I'm still like working with, but I'm getting more confident with it in each day. So that was a very long ramble to basically say Sloshbucklers is going to be a podcast where it's not always focused on my mental health. It's focused on something completely different and just purely an Elaine creative brainchild. And I'm excited to let it play. And I think it's great that I get to have both playgrounds. I get to go to both playgrounds every day. It's fucking sick. One playground has cotton candy. The next one has chocolate bars. I get both, bitch. I'm excited. Okay, so I've had the normal bout of self-doubt. I've not believed in myself. I have the perfectionism stopping me because I've had a podcast before. Don't people expect better from me? How do I get through it? I don't know. There are moments in my life where I just say, just go fucking do it. I just make myself go do a stupid thing. And this was going to be one of those moments. I had already put the work into it. I thought I deserved to give it a shot, and it's okay. If it turns out that Sloshbucklers doesn't work for me, or I don't have time to do it, or if I don't like the project, though I've already recorded the first 2 episodes and it's a fucking blast. But again, you never know until you do it. So it's the beginning of March and I was trying to figure out what day would I want the episodes to release. Obviously not Wednesday. That's Angus IT. I can't cram my chaotic schedule Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and add in like this other giant project. So it's like, okay, after Wednesday. Thirsty Thursdays. That's fun. And I'm looking up like, what would be a good launch day? And wouldn't you know that the first Thursday in April is April 1st, April Fool's Day. And I was like, that is iconic. That is hilarious. I am now setting that as my launch day. And I started telling the people in my life, my new podcast launches on April 1st. And I've just kept doing that. And now that I have that deadline, I had to actually do shit. So I got a second mic, I got the equipment, and I made myself book people. My friend Laura came over. We did a test episode. I learned a lot out of it. And then I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to like do the real damn thing because in the end, it doesn't matter. I just have to try. And then if it sucks, it goes away and I'll have learned something or, you know, what have you. Like I was just trying to be really like nice on myself. Like, it's okay. Nothing bad can happen. It's fine. So my panic levels are so high. Like when I recorded the first the first episode, my anxiety was through the roof, and I was like, this is gonna suck shit. Like, I have to like lead this. Like, I'm a host now, like a host to another person. All my guests are gonna be like friends for a while, so I can figure out the kinks with them before I like, heaven forbid, bring in one of my like podcast colleagues and they're like, what is this like chaotic 3-hour thing we're doing? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. So I'm just trying to get a good rhythm before I do that. Which means that being with like friends I'm close to, it's like, okay, takes off the pressure. But I made myself start scheduling people. I was like, okay, by the end of this week, I will have scheduled my first 3 people. And so I've gotten 2 podcasts out of the way, and I have a 3rd episode I need to schedule, but I know the person it's with, and I bought the seltzer. And going that way, I am getting stressed because I haven't planned like the next few people. I'll probably rotate for a bit too. Like, I just keep forgetting it's okay to like reuse humans. You know, they're recyclable. But, you know, I still have worries in my head. And I think part of it is I'm just still scared to touch it. But I haven't done any full editing yet. So I think once I do that, I've listened back to a few things and it's a lot funnier than I recall. Probably because I'm tipsy, but I don't know. I feel good about it. I just haven't, I'm still avoiding, let's say, the full dive in. But yeah, I just told people April 1st. I guess I have to do it by then. And a big tip is that when you launch a podcast, you launch your first 3 episodes because people like to binge podcasts. So you have a better chance of hooking them or getting them to stay if you give them 3 things to binge automatically. What I'll be doing with Sloshbucklers is it is going to be bi-weekly, so every other Thursday. I can't drink that much seltzer week to week, and I don't have it in me to like stock record that on top of Angus IT. So I feel like that was nice. I have the season option, and maybe I'll pull an ABC Family and do like mid-season pauses, mid-season premieres. Like, do you remember that? I'm just thinking about how that's kind of a weird thing. Like, wouldn't it just be a new season? But I have a lot more control. It's a lot more fun than it might seem in my head. So that's kind of how it came to be. And now I'm actually at a point where I'm pretty excited about it. I did a little mock-up logo over here. I think it's fun. Overall, I think you should always give it a shot. I have nothing to lose. Like, if this podcast doesn't go well, so be it. That's okay. I move on to the next thing. I get to go check, now that doesn't have to live in my head, what other cool things can I do? And setting up a second podcast for me, it's like, oh, like I kind of get a vibe for this. So, you know, if I ever have another idea, I can set that up as well. And like I've learned a lot through the process. You know, I was just thinking about the things that have come together for me in the past few weeks, months since I've quit. Like, things have been lining up. I've been meeting the right people. I'm guesting on other people's podcasts. I'm actually going to be featured in Podcast Magazine that'll come out March 31st, which is wild. But like, these things wouldn't have happened if I didn't take the chance. And so, you know, I don't know if Sloshbucklers is going to become this giant thing or not, but what I do know is that I enjoyed doing it. I've had a lot of fun creating it, and I'm glad that I'm doing it. And if it had just sat around and never been given life or a chance, then I would just kind of be back focusing on all the job shit, to be honest, which again, not a bad thing, but the unhealthy job thoughts I was having. I don't know, so far following my gut hasn't led me astray during this entire time. So I am so excited for you to listen to Sloshbucklers. I might, if you don't mind, I'm going to do the goals episode on April 1st, but I might drop a snippet of like a Sloshbucklers episode, maybe that second week or like the same week as not next week's episode of that first week of April, just so you can get like a flavor. And then if you like it, feel free to hop on over there. I will still be here weekly. Sloshbucklers will not change Angus IT. I might have to take occasional breaks in case I don't line up things, but I've actually been very good and have a way better recording editing schedule with Angus IT than I've ever had. Like, I haven't recorded and edited in the same day for almost a month now. So I feel a lot better. I feel good. I've given myself the chance to streamline so I can do more fun shit. If you have something on your plate that you have been putting off because, ooh, it's scary, or like, I don't know, I haven't looked into it, when probably in the span of 30 minutes of Googling, you'd probably have a solid idea of what to do. Give it a shot. Give yourself a deadline. Tell people that you're going to do it. And what is the worst that could happen? If you have people in your life who would shit on you for it, you shouldn't have them in your life anyway. If the people in your support group are like, go ahead and give it a go, do it. And if it ends up sucking or you don't like it at some point, you can stop and then you can focus on something else. But like, give yourself a chance, because you never know. That might turn into your career. You might hit it off. You might meet the right person through it. Even if that project doesn't stay, you might meet the right person who sends you into your dream job, like just things you didn't know. I mean, a lot of jobs these days aren't always titled the same way. Like you can't just Google, I want to be a communications specialist, because that doesn't have the same meaning for everybody. And networking is the way to go these days to meet people and get your job. So there are new kinds of jobs coming up every day. So you might not even know what you want to do. You have like a bullet point list, but it's like, I don't know what that is. But you might meet someone who makes that happen. So the risk you might be taking, it may not end the way you think it will, but that doesn't mean it'll end badly. So go fucking do it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Angus IT. I am overwhelmed and excited about everything. I want to thank my patrons, KT and OT, Rachel, Vanessa, Taylor, and Laura. Thank you so much for your patronage. I actually just released a video that I'm calling Taco Bell. It's like talk, like chatting, and I do a video chat as I go through the Taco Bell drive-thru. It's a grand old time. I also post weekly blogs and things like that, so feel free to go check out my Patreon at patreon.com/AngusIT. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at AngusIT. My DMs are always open. I have a great time chatting with you. Feel free to go follow Sloshbucklers as well. That's SLOSHBUCKLERS. I'll be there too, posting probably more chaotic content on that one. I haven't figured out the mood, but it's gonna be like trashy is what I've decided. You can head to my website, www.angusit.com, for show notes and all that jazz. And God, Jesus, did I hit everything for me? I have so much shit to say now. angusit@gmail.com. Okay, we're good. Go talk to a cow. I speak cow, and their moos will echo through the air, and I'll understand what you're saying. There's so many ways to get in touch with me. I hope that you go to the mechanic and you have to get an oil change and you're kind of freaked out about it, but it goes really smoothly. And not only that, they're having like a $10 off discount. And so you get your oil change for free, not for free, but like you get a discount. And so with that extra money, you're able to like get yourself something nice. So that's what I wish for you. And with that, I will talk to you next Wednesday. Bye, Huffers.